For you know that God paid a ransom to save you from the empty life you inherited from your ancestors, and it was not paid with mere gold or silver, which lose their value. It was the precious blood of Christ, the sinless, spotless Lamb of God.
It's wonderful to be back here at Wallara. This is the second in our series. Here we go. And thank you also, Andrew, for the music. In fact, just speaking of music, I recall being in the church offices at Wahroonga when the news of Andrew's father's tragic passing came to us. And we sang the hymn together, "Be Still My Soul." And it was an extremely emotional day because your father was a very special man. And today we're going to be talking about why each of us are so special. Dr. Furch was special, but you're special too. And we're going to share with you why you are so special in the eyes of God. And this is the second in our series. This afternoon is the third in our series where we're looking at the topic of how to succeed in life and what it means to be a success in life. So come with me to the vaults of the Auckland Art Gallery. My wife and I lived in Auckland for some time, and here we are going to see a painting that was stolen by this man here, and his name is Anthony Sand. Back in 1998, he went into the Auckland Art Gallery on a quiet Sunday morning. He had a sawn-off shotgun, and as he walked into the Auckland Art Gallery, he said, "Hit the ground." And you can imagine they did. And he then proceeded to go up to the upper levels of the Auckland Art Galleries where the most valuable works of art are in on the walls. And he found a painting. This painting here, I'm down in the vaults of the Auckland Gallery. They were kind enough to take me down there so I could see this painting. It's a painting by a renowned Christian artist by the name of James Tissot. James Tissot, many of his paintings, illustrations are in Bibles. And at any rate, this man in Auckland, he took this particular painting off the wall, and he had a short little crowbar, and he prized it out of the frame. He put it under his arm, and he went outside, got on his motorbike, and away he went. Well, they found him sometime later, and they found that this painting was hidden under his bed. So they took the painting, they took him, and what was that painting worth to that robber? Well, to him it was worth 17 years. And of course, this is not the only painting that has been stolen in history. During World War II, the Nazis reportedly stole around 100,000 paintings from France. And so it's a lot of paintings. And so you can imagine that the Louvre Museum, during this time of the Nazi occupation in France, they did everything they could to hide their paintings. And of course, Mona Lisa was one of those paintings that they would hide. But after the war, thousands of paintings were returned. And they came to the Louvre as the place to distribute, to see if they could find who owned these paintings. And just recently, the Louvre Museum had a special display in one of their rooms. I think they chose about 31 of their 296 stolen masterpieces that had returned, that they don't know who they belong to. And if you look on the Louvre website, they've got a whole area there where they have, I think it's 2,000 paintings and tapestries and sculptures which they show to say, these are stolen paintings that have been returned. We don't know who they belong to. If you know who they belong to, please come and see us so we can return these paintings. And over the years, there have been many famous paintings stolen, as we can see here. This afternoon, we're going to look at this Rembrandt painting here, but even the screen has been stolen. Some of these wonderful paintings in Victoria, just down below us. We can see that Weeping Woman was stolen back in 1986, and it was found undamaged a couple of weeks later. So the Interpol has 52,000 paintings that they have on their database that have been stolen, including 60 from Australia. So stealing paintings has been quite an occurrence through history. And still today, this is a major situation. And the most famous painting ever stolen is the Mona Lisa. Back in 1911, an Italian handyman, he came into the Louvre of a night and he hid in a closet through the night, and the next day, out he went with the Mona Lisa. And the painting was gone. And for 2 years, the Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre, and no one knew where it was. Now, that only added to the mystery and the fame of this painting, the Mona Lisa. Because you can imagine the picture of the Mona Lisa was plastered all over newspapers. Where is this painting? And people were lined up in the Louvre just to try and see the empty space of where the Mona Lisa was. Some even suspected Picasso to have stolen it. And so how did they find the painting? Well, there's an ad to say, well, where is this Mona Lisa? So this man here, Perugia, this Italian handyman, he went to Florence some 2 years later to try and sell it. He thought, look, I've brought the painting back to Italy, and so I will be seen as a hero. But they caught him, and the Mona Lisa was returned, and oddly enough, he only got 7 months jail for his efforts. But here's a question. If the Mona Lisa was stolen today, what would be the value of that painting? Well, the current value is about $1 billion. Now, it could well go for much more, because the rate that some people are becoming billionaires these days, it could sell for a whole lot more. But that's the current value, $1 billion. Today we're going to be talking about value. And not just about the value of paintings in the Louvre and in other galleries, but the value of you. I went to the website humanforsale.com, and you fill out all the different questions, and then it gives you a value of how much I'm worth, you're worth. How old you are, and the condition of you, and where you live, and all the rest of it. And my value came back at $1,344,541. Now, that is my value, not alive, but dead. So in terms of using different body parts, and that's the value that I came back at. In fact, I'm a consultant to the University of St Andrews, and I'm working with the libraries looking at the rare books in Australia and New Zealand. I noticed one book down in Melbourne, and in one of the university libraries there, and it's covered in human skin. The book is covered in human skin, and so I looked into, well, why? Why is this book covered in human skin? And it was published in London. And back in past centuries, if somebody was executed, they'd want to get the money's worth, and so they would even cover books in human skin just to use every part. Well, that's my value if it was dead, but today we're talking about what our value is alive. I found that many people determined their value based on their personal achievements and the opinion of others. What that means is this: if you are the boss or you've achieved great things in life, or you're smart, you're rich, you're handsome, and other people come and think you're wonderful, then you are worth far more than somebody who maybe have a job that is perceived to be a bit less in society, or you aren't shaped so well, or you're not so beautiful, or not as intelligent. And so it's vital, the media today, it's vital that you create a TikTok account with millions of views, or you're a great sportswoman, or you're an actress, or you have the latest teen music sensation, a wealthy businessman. And as a result, many people today feel worthless. Even the other day, I was speaking with a university professor at one of the finest universities in the world. Now, you'd think if, that he would think pretty highly of himself. He said, "Look, Neale, I've just retired." Now, he retired at 80. And he said, "I've just retired, and when I left my office," he said, "I sort of felt worthless because all the work that I've done is just packed up in a box. I'm gone. No, and that's the end of that." And he felt so down. He felt so worthless. And there are so many people today that are feeling just worthless in life. Depression is one of the major challenges we have in Australia. 1 in 5 of us is suffering from depression right now. So if we looked at our church here today and we went through 1 in 5, in fact 50% of us will suffer some form of mental illness in our lifetime. So it's a major challenge that we have. The Australian government reports that suicide is the largest cause of death among our young people. And millions of us here in Australia think others may be worth a whole lot, but not me. I'm worthless. I'm useless. And if that's what you may be thinking from time to time, I'm glad you're here today, because nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, I've found that our value, I'd like to contend today, is not determined by our achievements and what other people think of us. I said to Coralie, my wife, the other day, I said, "Look, I don't want to live my life according to other people's expectations of me." Our value does not depend what other people think of us or even what other people expect of us. Our value is dependent upon God's achievements and what He thinks of us. That's our value in life. And that's why we are so priceless. We should be overflowing with a sense of worth and value because we are priceless to God. And today I'm going to share with you why it is that we are of infinite value. I challenge you this week, as you go through the week, just whenever you have a spare moment and your mind just think of this thought, that I am of infinite value to God. I am of infinite value to God. In God's eyes, I'm worth everything. That should be us. Amen? We are priceless. True value, I believe, is based on 4 things: the maker, the owner, the buyer, and the quantity. So let me share with you that. Let's look first at the maker. A key reason why the Mona Lisa is worth so much is because it was painted by Leonardo da Vinci. He, of course, also painted Last Supper. If you go to Milan, you can see the Last Supper painting there. But da Vinci was not just a brilliant artist. He was a rare genius in a whole scientifically, in terms of architect. He was inventor of the helicopter, the bicycle. He got into aeronautics, anatomy. This man was just such a rare genius. And to have a painting that is made or created by someone like Leonardo da Vinci, the value goes up. So whoever the maker is determines what the value happens to be. There's the Last Supper. What about this? If you have a violin that was made by the famous Italian Antonio Stradivari, what happens to the value? And my father-in-law, he had a Stradivarius violin and he gave it away. He didn't realise the value until it was too late. Whoever makes the object determines the value. Now, at home, by the way, I'm pretty useless at making things. You know how some people, they've got different gifts in different areas? I have a brother who can make anything and fix anything and do anything. I'm pretty poor. But there was one occasion, and I made this table, and it's in our home, and I'm really proud of it because it came up beautifully. And if anybody ever comes to our home, I just, steer them past this table. And what I notice is people see the table and they say, "Whoa, wow, what a beautiful table. Where did you get it?" And you can imagine I'm pretty quick to say, "Well, actually, I made it." Now, if they said to me, "Look, how much? I want to buy it. How much would you sell it?" I'm not going to sell it. Why? Because to me, it is of such high value because I made it. And the beauty for us is the Bible says we are His workmanship. God made us. And because value is determined by the Maker, and God made you, you are priceless. Isn't that good news? Your value, you are priceless. Well, let's look at the second determinant of value, the owner. The Mona Lisa is famous partly because it's owned by the famous Louvre, the French government. Before that, belonged to the King of France. Whoever owns something, whoever owns something, the owner determines the value. So I'll give you some examples. That's King Francis of France, who owned the Mona Lisa. This is John F. Kennedy's golf clubs. Now, we spoke last night about how we lived in St Andrews, and the beauty of me being able to go down and play at the most famous golf course in the world for basically nothing, because we lived there. And so golf clubs and golf is of great interest to me. And this is a pretty poor old set of golf clubs. You know, the golf clubs have come a long way in terms of technology, but these were sold at auction, $1 million. Why? Because they're good golf clubs? No, they belonged to JFK. Whoever owns something determines the value. Then we have the Pope's 1975 Escort. Now, how much would you pay for that? Well, it sold at auction, $700,000. Well, I don't know whether you would pay $700,000. Now, if any of you are followers of soccer and living in the UK for a number of years, soccer is everything over there. And probably the most famous coach is this fellow here. You know who he is? You know his name? Australians may not know him. His name is Alex Ferguson. Extremely famous, Manchester United, if I remember correctly. And he was known for chewing gum. So the last bit of gum went up for sale at auction. How much would you pay? $600,000. Why? Because it belonged to Alex Ferguson. And if you followed that football club, then if you could get his last piece of chewing gum, it was worth a whole lot. So value is determined by who the owner happens to be. So here's the question. Who do you belong to? By the way, this is Napoleon's toothbrush. That sold for 40,000. The Bible says, I will be a father to you, you will be my sons and my daughters, says the Lord God. We are his children. We belong to God. We are priceless because we are made by God and we belong to God. He is our owner. Thirdly, value is determined by the buyer. I'll give you some examples, some paintings. The comedian. Now, it's a banana stuck on the wall with a bit of tape. It was sold in 2019 for $175,000. That's not worth $175,000. Well, to me, it's not. By the way, I think just last year, a Korean student took the banana down and ate it and stuck back the peel. Now, when Gough Whitlam purchased Blue Poles, if you go down to the gallery in Canberra, you'll see it. I was just a very little boy, so I don't remember, but some of you may remember. And so I had a look in more recent years in the newspapers to see what Australians thought about Gough Whitlam, because remember, Gough Whitlam, when he was Prime Minister, it was not a very wonderful time for the economy of Australia. And so 1.3 million for dribs and drabs. He paid $1.3 million. And then in the Mirror, barefoot drunks painted our $1 million masterpiece. In other words, Australians were saying, hey, this is not worth $1.3 million, Gough Whitlam. How dare you use our money to buy such a rubbish painting such as that? It's not worth it. This is what the Australians were saying. Well, value now is $500 million. Willem de Kooning painted this interchange. How much would you pay for that painting there? How much? How much? Nothing. Okay. Well, it sold at auction, $435 million. That's not worth $435 million to me. And what about woman number 3? How much would you pay for that? $200 million. That's the sale. This is Australian dollars, $200 million. Now the next one, this is called The Fountain. A 1917 masterpiece urinal purchased by Marcel Duchamp from Bedfordshire. And I noticed that recently 500 British art experts voted this as the most influential work of art in the 20th century. I'm not sure why. Well, that sold for $3 million. That's not worth $3 million to me. My wife and I, when we were in Paris some time back, we went to the Galeries Lafayette. They're in Paris. As you can see, it's quite an opulent store. And we went into the first area, and it's the shoe shop. And we thought, okay, well, let's have a look at these shoes. And we turned over a pair of shoes and $5,000. And my wife is accustomed to shopping at another famous French retailer, St. Vincent de Paul. And so she said, let's get out of here. $5,000 for a pair of shoes. I said, hang on, there may be some specials. And so we went, and I turned over another, just like it was like a cross between a pair of thongs and sandals, and it was $2,000. And so we got out of there pretty quickly. But then I realised something. Someone is willing to pay that amount of money to buy those shoes. This was going very well. They had huge overheads and had staff everywhere. They weren't going out of business. Someone was buying them. And so even though I may not think it's worth it, somebody was. Remember in Los Angeles going to the Getty Museum and seeing this chest here, this cabinet, owned by King Louis XVI, and somebody asked the guide, how much is it worth? And this is what he said, whatever someone is willing to pay. So the price is determined by the maker, the owner, and the buyer. However much somebody is willing to pay. Now, how much was God willing to pay for you? Remember our memory text? For you know that it was not with perishable things such as silver or gold that you were redeemed, but with the precious blood of Christ. That's how much you are worth. It is determined by the one willing to pay. So what is God worth? Is God worth $1,000,000, $1,billion, $1,000,000,000,000? In God's view, and this is a daunting thought, in God's view, his value is the same as you. He paid his life for you. That's how valuable you are. Isn't that a staggering thought? That we are priceless. And fourthly, our value is determined by the quantity. The Mona Lisa has the most copied painting in history. And even I remember going to the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, Prado Museum in Spain. They have copies of Mona Lisa there. Oh, well, there's the Mona Lisa. Well, it's the people have been making all sorts of interesting copies of the Mona Lisa, but there's only one genuine Mona Lisa, and that's why it is worth so much. Here is, and you can see them there taking the photos. This is a 1955 Mercedes 300 SLR. It sold last year for $215 million. Now, that's a lot of money. The point is this, only 2 of them were ever made. The number determines to a large extent the value, the quantity, and the rarer an item is, the more valuable it becomes. This Australian stamp from Western Australia, it's called the upside down swan, but it's actually the frame that is upside down. And it sold for $290,000. And one of the big reasons is not only is it rare because it was upside down, but only 15 of the 388 remain. The rarer an item is, the more the value skyrockets. The 1930 Australian penny. Now, if you had one of these pennies, it's worth $20,000. But if you get one of the proof pennies, it's sold recently for $1.15 million. Only 6 were minted. The rarer an item is, the more valuable it becomes. Treat it with care. And here's the point. There is only one of you. No one is identical to you. God has given you to make of you what you choose you to be. I say reverently, not even God creates another you, because we are made up of our choices. We are unique. We are one of a kind. And that is why we are priceless. In the Getty Museum, there's this beautiful painting called The Ransom. I remember it really captured my attention, and we can see in this painting, it tells the story of this knight here, and he is paying over a ransom to have his 2 daughters come back to him. And we can see one of the men who took them is getting the money. The other is holding on the hand of each girl to make sure they get the money before they give the girls over, the ransom. Well, according to this painting, the knight was willing to pay all that money over to receive his two girls. I heard the story once of somebody in Venezuela who had his daughter kidnapped, and the captors were saying, "I want $1 million for the return of your kidnapped girl." Now, imagine if that fellow whose daughter was kidnapped, imagine if he received a phone call and said, "Listen, I've heard that your daughter has been captured, and somebody wants $1 million for her return. I tell you what, I know where there's a girl, and it'll only cost you $50,000. Do you think the father would be interested? No. He doesn't just want a girl, he wants his girl. You and I, sometimes we can think, whether we're saved or lost, that doesn't really matter to God. He's got billions of others. What would we matter? To God, you are priceless. There is no one like you. We have such self-worth. Well, it's worth to God. We are priceless to God. He thinks so highly of us. We should never think that we don't matter. Remember, our value is not determined by our achievements or what other people think of us. Our value is determined by God's achievements and what He thinks of us. This weekend, we're talking about the mysteries of the Louvre and the different stories behind the paintings and the history and so on. But the Bible talks about the mystery of the gospel. How it is that God could think so highly of us, sinner. I'm a weak sinner. You and I are. Why would God think so highly of us that He would come and die for us so that we can live with Him forever? It's a mystery. It's the greatest mystery that could ever be told. But that is the truth. That is the story of the gospel. And I'm going to just share with you, in closing on this program, a story that I heard from Egypt. And some of you, I see, have been to the Louvre. A number of you perhaps have also been to the Holy Lands, been to Egypt. I can remember going there and, looking through all the different areas that the Bible talks about, and it really sort of helps things come to life. I heard the story of one fellow who was a tour guide who would take people like us to the Holy Lands, and he took this group to Egypt. And if any of you have been on sort of paid tours, you know how they often take you into souvenir shops, and it drives you crazy. At any rate, this tour guide, he took his group into this pottery shop, and there's plenty of those in Egypt. And in this pottery shop, the tour guide was, fairly bored, and he was just sitting there watching the, person making some pots. And then he looked up, and he noticed up on the shelf there was a pot that had these magnificent red colours in it. There was crimson and pink, all the different colours of red. He thought, wow, that's a beautiful looking pot. And so he said to the shop owner, he said, "Can I buy that?" He thought the fellow would give it to him. After all, he keeps bringing his people in to buy his goods. And the man said, "No, I'm not going to sell that to you." And the tour guide said, "Well, hang on. I'm bringing all these people in. Surely you should give it to me." And then the man told him told the tour guide the story. He said, let me tell you what happened, how I got to make that pot. He said, on one occasion, I started to make this pot. And it was tough clay. And so I tried, and I got so exasperated with it not yielding into how I want it to be made, that I got that clay and I just threw it into the corner. But after a little while, I thought, I'll have another try. And he got the clay and he picked it up, and then he tried again, and still nothing. So he got that clay, and once again, by now he's getting pretty angry, so he just threw it in the corner. And then after he said, look, I'll give it one more try. And so he got that clay. And as he started to get that wheel going, he pushed with all his might on that clay. And then he said that as I started to push into that clay, one of the sharp pieces in that clay cut across the palm of my hand. And he said, as that happened, as the blood started to go into that clay, he said it made it so it was mouldable and I could make that pot. And he said, when I put it into that kiln, all the beautiful colours of red came out into that pot. He said, I couldn't sell that pot to you. It's got my blood in it. You and I have the precious blood of Jesus invested in us. We are priceless to God. He made us. He owns us. He bought us. He invested his blood in us. We are one of a kind. We are worth everything. And that is the mystery of the gospel. Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you that you give us so many practical things in life to teach us the beauty of the Bible story of the gospel. Lord, many of us are discouraged, we're depressed, we think we are failures in life. Thank you that the way you see us, we are priceless. We are so valuable, you're willing to die for us, and you just long to come back and live with us forever. Lord, help us today to be able to show this to other people, to share it with other people, and to live a life that displays the beauty of God in us, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.